The alarm bells rang through the research station like the screams of dying animals. Dr. Maya Collins pressed herself against the cold metal wall as laser fire burned through the air where she had been standing just seconds before. Her hands shook as she tried to work her communication device. "This is Research Station Alpha 7, she said into the device. Her voice cracked with fear. "We are under attack. Pirates have broken through our shields. We need help now." The station housed scientists from 12 different worlds. They had been studying peaceful things like plant growth and water cleaning systems. Now they were running for their lives as armed pirates, smashed through their laboratories and stole everything they could carry. Jake Morrison sat in his command chair aboard the human vessel Liberty's Edge when the distress call came. Through, he was a tall man with gray hair and calm blue eyes. His ship was not the biggest in the human fleet, but it was fast, and his crew knew their jobs well. "Captain," said Lieutenant Commander Lisa Barnes from her position at the weapons station. She was a young woman with short black hair and sharp green eyes. "We're getting a distress signal from a council research station. Pirates are attacking civilians." Morrison nodded once. "How long to get there?" 20 minutes at full speed," answered Chief Engineer Carlos Rodriguez from his station. He was a stocky man with kind eyes who could make any engine run better than it was supposed to. "Do it," Morrison said. He turned to his communications officer. "Amy, send word to the council forces in this area. Tell them we're responding to the distress call." Amy Foster was barely 25 years old, but she had quick fingers and a good mind for handling multiple communications at once. "Message sent, Captain. Should I tell them our battle plan?" Morrison thought for a moment. "No, just tell them we're going to help." On the research station, Dr. Collins and the other scientists had locked themselves in the main laboratory. Through the thick windows, they could see the pirate ships floating outside like hungry sharks. The pirates were a mix of different alien species. Some looked like giant lizards with too many teeth. Others were covered in fur and had claws that could cut through metal. Dr. Vextai was a Krillian scientist with blue skin and forearms. He was known throughout the galaxy for studying different species and how they fought in wars. He had been on the station to learn about human farming methods when the attack started. "The human ship will be here soon," Dr. Collins said, reading her communication device. "The Liberty's Edge is 20 minutes out." Dr. Vextai made a clicking sound with his mouth that meant he was thinking hard. "Humans," he said, "I have read their war records. Other species find their fighting methods very strange." "Strange how?" asked Dr. Collins. "They do not act like other warriors," Dr. Vextai explained. "Most species sing songs or shout challenges when they fight. They let their emotions guide them into battle. But humans do something different, something that makes other species very uncomfortable." Before Dr. Collins could ask what he meant, the station shook as more pirate weapons hit the shields. Through the windows, they could see the pirate commander's ship. It was twice the size of any other ship in the attacking fleet. The pirate commander was a creature called a Vorthan. His name was Grexmore, and he had led raids on peaceful worlds for over 20 years. He had fought against many different species, and won most of his battles because he understood how warriors thought and acted. "Take everything of value," Grexmore growled into his communication system. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "Kill anyone who fights back. Leave the rest alive so they can tell others what happens when they don't pay us protection." Money. Grexmore had fought council forces before. He knew their patterns. The Zelani would sing war songs that told him exactly when they planned to attack. The Krillians would release sweet-smelling chemicals when they got excited about fighting. The Vorthans, like himself, would issue formal challenges and threats, giving their enemies time to prepare. Every species he had fought was predictable in some way. Their emotions controlled them during battle, and emotions were easy to read and use against them. "Sir," said one of his crew members, "sensors show a ship approaching fast. It's not Council forces." Grexmore looked at his screens. The approaching ship was smaller than his own, but it was moving with purpose and speed. "What species?" "Human, sir." Grexmore had heard of humans, but he had never fought them personally. He knew they were new to the galaxy, and had only been part of the Council for a few years. Most pirates avoided human space because there wasn't much worth stealing there yet. "One ship against my entire fleet?" Grexmore laughed, showing rows of sharp teeth. "This will be easier than I thought." Back on the Liberty's edge, Captain Narration studied the tactical information on his main screen. The pirate fleet had 6 ships surrounding the research station. His ship was outnumbered, but numbers didn't always decide who won a fight. "Lisa," he said quietly to his weapons officer, "give me targeting solutions on all 6 ships. Start with the ones closest to the station." "Targets locked, Captain," Lisa replied. Her voice was calm and steady. "Carlos, I need everything you can give me from the engines. We're going in fast and hard." "Engines ready, Captain," Carlos said. "We can give you 110% power for about 15 minutes before things start to break." Morrison nodded once. Then he did something that would have surprised warriors from most other species. He said nothing more. No speeches about glory or honor. No threats directed at the enemy. No emotional words to pump up his crew. The bridge of the Liberty's edge became completely quiet except for the soft hum of the ship's systems. On the research station, Dr. Collins and Dr. Vextai watched their scanners as the human ship approached. The battle zone. Dr. Collins expected to hear human battle communications over the open channels. She had heard Zilani war songs and Krillian excitement calls during other conflicts. Instead, she heard nothing. Why aren't they saying anything? Dr. Collins asked. Dr. Vextai's skin changed from blue to a pale green color, which meant he was becoming afraid. "This is what I was trying to tell you. This is why other species fear fighting alongside humans. They go completely silent during combat. So, maybe they're just focused." "You don't understand," Dr. Vextai said, his forearms moving nervously. "When a Zilani warrior is about to fight, he sings to tell his enemies he is brave and ready to die with honor. When a Krillian fights, she releases chemicals that show her excitement and confidence. When a Vorthan enters battle, he roars challenges to prove his strength. And humans? Humans say nothing. They make no sound. They show no emotion. They just appear and begin killing with perfect efficiency. It's like being attacked by ghosts. Or machines instead of living beings." Dr. Collins felt a chill run down her back. She looked at her scanner again. The human ship was almost within weapon range of the pirates. The communication channels were still completely silent. The Liberty's edge came out of faster-than-light travel, like a knife cutting through silk. Captain Morrison's ship appeared at the edge of the battle zone without any warning. The pirates had expected to hear engine noise or see bright lights, announcing the human ship's arrival. Instead, the Liberty's edge simply materialized in space as if it had always been there. Grexmore stared at his tactical screen in confusion. One moment, his sensors showed empty space. The next moment, there was a human warship sitting perfectly still about 10,000 kilometers away from his fleet. "Why did they stop?" asked his weapons officer. "Most species charge straight at us, while screaming about honor and justice." Grexmore had been asking himself the same question. In his 20 years of raiding, every enemy had followed predictable patterns. They would arrive with loud engine noise, immediately open communication channels to make threats or demands, and then attack with obvious emotions guiding their actions. The human ship did none of these things. It just sat therein, space like a predator watching its prey. On the research station, Dr. Collins watched her scanner with growing nervousness. "What are they waiting for?" she asked Dr. Vextai. The Krillian scientist was now completely pale green with fear. "They are studying the enemy," he said quietly. "Humans don't attack right away like other species. They watch and learn first." "Doctor." Collins thought this sounded smart, but something about the complete silence from the human ship made her skin crawl. She was used to hearing chatter from rescue ships. Pilots usually talked to the people they were saving, giving updates and encouragement. The humans said nothing. Aboard the Liberty's Edge, Captain Morrison studied the tactical information flowing across his screens. His crew worked with quiet efficiency, gathering data about enemy ship types, weapon systems, and formation patterns. 6 ships, Lisa Barnes reported softly. 2 heavy cruisers, 3 medium attack vessels, and 1 command ship. The command ship has the strongest shields. Morrison nodded once. He could see that the pirates had positioned themselves to protect their command ship while keeping the research station in the middle of their formation. Any attacking force would have to go through multiple layers of enemy fire to reach the wing. Pirates leader. Most species would have seen this as a difficult tactical problem. Morrison saw it as an opportunity. "Carlos," he said quietly, "can you give me a short burst of maximum power to the engines?" "How short?" Carlos asked. 3 seconds. Carlos checked his instruments. "I can give you 130%. For 3 seconds. But the engines will need 2 minutes to cool down afterward." "Perfect. Amy, prepare to jam all pirate communications on my mark." Amy Foster's fingers moved quickly over her control panel. "Ready, Captain?" Morrison looked at his crew. Each person knew their job and was ready to do it. There was no need for speeches or emotional preparation. They had trained for situations like this many times. "Execute," Morrison said. Several things happened at once. The Liberty's Edge shot forward at incredible speed, covering half the distance to the pirate fleet in just 3 seconds. At the same time, Amy jammed all enemy communications, preventing the pirates from coordinating their response. Lisa's weapon systems came online with perfect targeting solutions. Already locked. The pirate fleet was caught completely off guard. They had expected the human ship to approach slowly while making threats or demands. Instead, the Liberty's Edge was suddenly much closer and moving in ways that made no tactical sense to alien minds. Grexmore tried to order his ships to attack, but his communications were being jammed. He watched in growing alarm as the human ship moved through his formation like it was dancing between raindrops. The Liberty's Edge fired its first shots. Lisa had chosen her targets carefully. Instead of attacking the strongest ships first, she aimed for the pirates' engines and weapon systems. Her goal was not to destroy the enemy ships quickly, but to cripple them so they couldn't fight back effectively. 3 pirate ships lost their main engines in the first 10 seconds of combat. 2 more had their primary weapons destroyed. The 6th ship tried to run, but found that its faster-than-light drive had been damaged by a perfectly placed shot. Dr. Collins watched the battle from the research station with amazement and growing fear. She had seen space battles before, but they usually involved lots of bright explosions and dramatic maneuvers. Ships would charge at each other while firing everything they had. The human attack was different. The Liberty's Edge moved with surgical precision, targeting specific systems on enemy ships instead of trying to destroy them completely. Each shot was calculated to cause maximum damage to the pirates' ability to fight while using minimum ammunition. Why? Aren't they destroying the ships? Dr. Collins asked. Dr. Vextai was recording everything on his personal data device. His scientific mind was fascinated, even though he was terrified. "They are being efficient," he said. "Destroying a ship completely takes many shots and lots of energy. Disabling a ship takes fewer shots and leaves the crew alive to surrender. But the pirates could repair their ships and fight again. Not if the humans capture them first. Dr. Collins looked at her scanner again. The human ship was still completely silent on all communication channels. No victory shouts, no demands for surrender, no threats. Just deadly, efficient action. Grexmore finally managed to restore communications with 2 of his remaining ships. All vessels attacked the human ship. He roared, "Focus all fire on their engines." The 2 ships that could still fight turned there. Weapons toward the Liberty's edge, but the human ship was no longer where they expected it to be. Morrison had used a few seconds of communication jamming to change position. And now the Liberty's edge was approaching from an angle that put the research station between the human ship and most of the pirate weapons. Lisa Barnes fired again. Her shots were not random. She had been watching how the pirate ships moved and had learned their patterns. When Grexmore's command ship tried to turn away from her weapons, she was already aiming at where it would be, not where it was, the command. Ship's main guns exploded in showers of sparks and metal. Grexmore's ship was now helpless, floating in space with no weapons and damaged engines. The 2 remaining pirate ships that could still fight tried to coordinate their attacks. But coordination required communication, and every time they tried to talk to each other, Amy Foster jammed their signals. Morrison watched his tactical display with calm satisfaction. The battle was going exactly as he had planned. The pirates were confused and scared because they couldn't understand human tactics. They kept expecting the Liberty's edge to behave like ships from other species. But human military doctrine was different from anything they had experienced. Other species fought with emotion. Humans fought with mathematics. "Lisa," Morrison said, quietly, "disable the last 2 ships. Leave their life support systems working." "Understood, Captain." 2 more precise shots, and the pirate fleet was completely helpless. 6 ships hung in space like broken toys, their crews alive but unable to fight or escape. The entire battle had taken less than 8 minutes. Dr. Collins stared at her scanner in disbelief. "Is it over?" Dr. Vextai was still recording, his 4 arms shaking slightly. "Yes, it's over. But do you see what just happened?" The humans never said a single word during the entire fight. No battle cries, no threats, no communication with the enemy at all. Maybe they'll talk to us now. But the communication channels remained silent. The Liberty's edge moved slowly toward the research station, scanning for damage and checking for more threats. A human crew worked with the same quiet efficiency they had shown during combat. On his command ship, Grexmore sat in his captain's chair and tried to understand what had just happened to his fleet. He had fought many different species over the years. He knew how to predict their actions and use their emotions against them. But the humans had no emotions he could read. They had attacked without anger, fought without excitement, and won without celebration. It was like being defeated by a natural disaster instead of living beings. For the first time in 20 years of piracy, Grexmore felt truly afraid. The Liberties. Edge continued its silent approach toward the research station. Inside the ship, Captain Morrison and his crew prepared for the next phase of their mission. They would secure the area, arrest the pirates, and make sure the scientists were safe. They would do all of this with the same quiet professionalism they had shown during the battle. And the galaxy would have one more story about why humans were so feared in combat. 3 weeks after the battle at Research Station Alpha 7, the Galactic Council called an emergency meeting. The Great Assembly Hall on Council Prime was filled with representatives from 43 different worlds. The air buzzed with nervous energy as alien species whispered to each other in dozens of different languages. Ambassador Kethfer of the Zelani stood at the center of the hall. Her people were tall and thin with silver skin that changed colors based on their emotions. "Right," Now our skin showed the deep purple of serious concern. "Fellow council members," Kethvar began, her voice carrying clearly through the hall's sound system. "We are here to discuss the human response to the pirate attack on Research Station Alpha 7. The incident has raised concerns about human military methods and their compatibility with Council forces." In the human section of the hall, Representative Daniel Wright sat quietly. He was a middle-aged man with brown hair and tired eyes who had been representing Earth in Council politics for 3 years. He had been expecting this meeting since the first reports about the battle started spreading through the galaxy. Wright looked around the hall and saw fear in many alien faces. He also saw curiosity, confusion, and in some cases, what might have been respect, but mostly fear. Tizara of the Vorthan Collective rose from her seat. The Vorthans were large, muscular beings covered in thick fur. They were known throughout the galaxy as honorable warriors who valued strength and courage above all else. The human ship arrived at the battle site and defeated 6 pirate vessels in less than 8 minutes, Tizara said. Her voice was deep and powerful. This should be cause for celebration. Instead, we find ourselves afraid of our own allies. Murmurs spread through the hall. Several representatives nodded in agreement, while others made gestures that showed disagreement in their cultures. Council member Zixthara of the Aquatic Federation spoke next. His people lived underwater and communicated through color changes in their skin as well as sounds. The problem is not that humans won the battle. The problem is how they won it. Wright stood up slowly. "What exactly are you accusing us of?" he asked. His voice was calm, but there was steel underneath the words. Kethvar activated a holographic display in the center of the hall. The display showed the battle at Research Station Alpha 7 from multiple angles. "Please observe the human ships. Behavior during combat," she said. The hologram played the battle from beginning to end. The assembled council members watched as the Liberty's Edge appeared without warning, attacked with surgical precision, and disabled the entire pirate fleet without saying a single word over open communication channels. When the recording ended, the hall was silent for a long moment. "This is what concerns us," Kethvar said. "Human combat behavior is unlike anything we have seen from other species. You fight without emotion, without communication, without any of the normal patterns that allow us to understand warrior mindset." Wright looked around the hall. "We won. We saved innocent lives. We captured the pirates without killing anyone unnecessarily. What part of this bothers you?" Dr. Vextai entered the hall through a side door. He had been invited to speak as an expert witness since he had observed the battle firsthand. His blue skin was now a nervous light green color. "If I may address the council," Dr. Vextai said, "I have studied human combat records extensively since the battle. What I found disturbs me greatly." Wright turned to face the Krillian scientist. "What did you find?" Dr. Vextai activated his own holographic display. It showed combat footage from dozens of human battles over the past few years. In every single engagement, humans display the same behavior pattern. Complete silence during combat. No emotional responses. No communication with enemies. No celebration after victory. The display showed human ships and soldiers in various battles. In space, on planets, in small skirmishes and large wars, the pattern was always the same. Humans fought with deadly efficiency and perfect emotional control. This is not normal behavior for intelligent species, Dr. Vextai continued. When Zilani warriors enter battle, they sing war songs that tell everyone about their courage and determination. These songs serve important psychological functions for both the warriors and their enemies. Kethvar's skin shifted to a golden color as she prepared to demonstrate. She opened her mouth and released a haunting melody that spoke of honor, duty, and willingness to die for a good cause. The song was beautiful and sad at the same time. When Krillian fighters engage enemies, Dr. Vextai said, we release pheromones that communicate our emotional state. These chemicals tell our allies we are ready to fight and warn our enemies that we are dangerous. Dr. Vextai's skin released a sweet smell that filled his section of the hall. Other Krillians in the audience responded by changing their own skin, colors to show solidarity and readiness for battle. When Vorthans face combat, Tessara added, we issue formal challenges to our enemies. We tell them who we are, why we fight, and what we will do to them if they do not surrender. She stood up to her full height of nearly 3 meters and let out a roar that shook the walls of the assembly hall. It was a sound that spoke of strength, pride, and absolute confidence in victory. Every species has combat rituals, Dr. Vextai said. These rituals serve important functions. They boost morale, intimidate enemies, and allow warriors to process the psychological stress of violence. Wright listened to all of this with growing confusion. So you're upset because we don't sing songs or roar at our enemies? You don't understand, Kethver said. Combat behavior reveals the fundamental nature of a species' psychology. What your silence tells us is that humans feel nothing during battle. You kill without emotion, win without joy, and move on without processing what you have done. That's not true, Wright protested. That explain your behavior, Tessara demanded. Why do humans fight in complete silence? Why do you show no emotion during combat? Why does every human warrior display the same cold, calculating behavior? Wright stood up and walked to the center of the hall. He looked around at the assembled representatives of dozens of different worlds. These were his allies, but Wright. Now they looked at him like he was something dangerous and alien. We maintain communication discipline during combat to prevent enemies from intercepting our tactical information, Wright explained. Silence keeps our soldiers alive and helps us complete missions more efficiently. But what about the psychological aspects? Dr. Vextai asked. How do human warriors deal with the emotional stress of violence without release mechanisms? Wright thought about this question. He had never considered that other species might need to sing or roar or release chemicals during battle. To him, those behaviors seemed like they would interfere with military effectiveness. We deal with emotions after the battle is over, he said finally. During combat, our soldiers focus completely on the mission. The hall erupted in nervous chatter. Representatives whispered to each other in languages Wright didn't understand, but their body language was clear. They were afraid. Kethver called for order. Representative Wright, you say humans deal with emotions after battle, but our observations show no emotional release even after victory. Your Captain Morrison and his crew showed no celebration, no relief, no acknowledgement of their successful mission. They were still on duty, Wright said. There were wounded civilians to help and pirates to arrest. Personal feelings come after the job is done. And when is the job ever truly done? Dr. Vextai asked quietly. Wright didn't have an answer for. That question. Council, member Orth Ull of the Silicon Collective, spoke for the first time. His people were crystalline beings who communicated through harmonic vibrations. The concern is this. If humans can suppress all emotion during violence, how do we know they will not turn that same cold efficiency against us? The hall fell silent. This was the real fear underlying all the discussion. Not that humans were ineffective warriors, but that they were too effective, too controlled, too dangerous to predict or understand. Wright felt the weight of dozens of alien stares. These beings had welcomed humans into the galactic community, shared their technology and knowledge, offered friendship and alliance. Now they were wondering if they had made a terrible mistake. Humans are not emotionless killers, Wright said firmly. We fight the way we do because we care too much about winning to let anything interfere with our effectiveness. But even as he said the words, Wright could see that his explanation was not reassuring anyone. If anything, the idea that humans cared so much about victory that they would suppress all other feelings made the aliens even more nervous. The meeting continued for hours, but no real understanding was reached. The council members remained afraid of human combat behavior, and Wright could not find words to explain something that seemed perfectly natural to him. As the session ended, Wright realized that humans and the rest of the galaxy had a fundamental communication problem. What humans saw as professional discipline, aliens saw as frightening emotional control. The question was, how do you explain to someone that your silence comes from caring too much, not too little? Marine Sergeant Kelly Brooks checked her weapon one final time before entering the pirate stronghold. The building was a converted mining facility on a dead moon at the edge of known space. Intelligence reports said it housed over 200 pirates and contained enough stolen goods to supply a small army. Kelly's unit had been sent to capture the facility and arrest everyone inside. It was the kind of mission that required perfect coordination and absolute silence. One mistake could turn a clean operation into a bloodbath. Radio check, whispered Corporal Steve Chun over the team's private communication channel. He was Kelly's second in command, a quiet man who had been fighting alongside her for 3 years. Brooks here, Kelly responded softly. Turner ready, came the voice of Private First Class Alex Turner. He was the youngest member of the team, barely 21 years old, but he had steady hands and good instincts. Rodriguez set, said Private Maria Rodriguez. She was not related to the engineer from the Liberty's Edge, but she shared his talent for making complicated things work properly. Kelly looked at her team through the green glow of her night vision goggles. They had trained for this mission for weeks. Each person knew exactly what they needed to do and when they needed to do it. There was no need for speeches or emotional preparation. Move out, Kelly said quietly. The team entered the facility through a maintenance tunnel that their intelligence sources had identified. The tunnel was dark, narrow, and filled with the smell of old machinery and unwashed bodies. Kelly led the way, her weapon ready and her senses alert for any sign of danger. As they moved through the facility, Kelly felt the familiar change that came over her during combat operations. All of her personal thoughts and feelings seemed to fade into the background. Her daughter's upcoming birthday party, her mother's health problems, her own fears about getting injured or killed, all of these concerns became quiet whispers in the back of her mind. What remained was pure focus. Every shadow could hide an enemy. Every sound could be a warning of danger. Every decision could mean the difference between mission success and disaster. This was what the aliens didn't understand about human combat behavior. It wasn't that humans felt nothing during battle. It was that they felt everything so intensely that they had learned to push those feelings aside until the mission was complete. Kelly's unit moved through the facility like ghosts. They used hand signals instead of verbal communication. They stepped carefully to avoid making noise. They breathed slowly and evenly to keep their heart rates under control. In the facility's main control room, Grexmore sat at a bank of monitors watching for signs of trouble. The pirate commander had escaped from the battle at Research Station Alpha 7 when Council forces arrived to arrest his crew. Now he was hiding in this remote facility, planning his next move. Grexmore had not been able to stop thinking about the human ship and its silent crew. In his nightmares, he saw the Liberty's Edge appearing without warning and destroying his fleet with surgical precision. He woke up in cold sweats, remembering the complete absence of communication from the human warriors. "Sir," said one of his communications officers, "we're getting reports of movement in the lower levels." Grexmore looked at his security monitors. but the screens showed only empty corridors and dark rooms. "Probably just maintenance robots," he said. But his voice showed doubt. "Should I send a patrol to check?" Grexmore thought about this. The facility had over 50 armed guards, plus automated defense systems and early warning sensors. If there was a real threat, his systems would have detected it long before any intruders reached the lower levels. "Send 2 guards," he said finally, "but keep them in radio contact." Kelly's team had already disabled 3 guard patrols without raising any alarms. The pirates they encountered were not expecting silent attackers who moved like hunting predators. Most criminals were used to dealing with loud, aggressive enemies who announced their presence with threats and demands. Steve Chun appeared beside Kelly as she crouched behind a stack of storage containers. He held up 2 fingers, then pointed down a side corridor. 2 more guards approaching. Kelly nodded once. She and Steve had worked together long enough that they could communicate complex tactical information with simple gestures. She pointed to herself, then to the left side of the corridor. Steve understood and moved to cover the right side. The 2 pirate guards walked past their hiding place without seeing them. Kelly and Steve stepped out behind the guards simultaneously. Kelly's hand clamped over one guard's mouth, while Steve disabled the other with a sleeper hold. Both pirates were unconscious in seconds. Alex Turner appeared from the shadows to help secure the unconscious guards. His job was to make sure they stayed quiet and couldn't warn their friends when they woke up. He worked quickly and efficiently, using zip ties and tape to keep the guards from moving or making noise. Maria Rodriguez was already at the end of the corridor, working on an electronic lock that blocked their path to the main control room. Her fingers moved quickly over a small device that could crack most standard security systems. Kelly watched Maria work and felt a deep sense of pride in her team. These young soldiers had learned to control their emotions and focus their minds in ways that most people couldn't understand. They weren't cold or unfeeling. They were professionals who cared so much about doing their jobs right that they had trained themselves to push personal feelings aside during missions. "Doors open," Maria whispered. Kelly's team moved into the next section of the facility. They were getting close to their primary target now. Intelligence said that Grexmore was somewhere in the main control complex. Along with at least 20 guards and the facility's command staff. As they approached the control room, Kelly could hear voices speaking in the harsh language that Vorthans used among themselves. Grexmore was giving orders to his subordinates, but his voice sounded nervous and uncertain. Kelly held up her fist, signaling her team to stop and take cover. She listened carefully to the alien voices, trying to determine how many enemies were waiting in the next room. "Brooks," Steve Chun whispered over their private channel, "I count at least 6 different voices. Could be more." Kelly nodded. 6. Against 4 were not terrible odds, especially since her team had the advantages of surprise and superior training. But she needed to make sure they could take the control room without giving the pirates a chance to send warning signals to other criminal groups. She pointed to Alex Turner and made a circular motion with her finger. Alex understood and began moving to find an alternate entry point to the control room. Maria Rodriguez was already setting up a device that would jam all electronic communications from the facility. Kelly felt her heart rate increase as adrenaline began flowing through her body. This was the most dangerous part of any mission, the moment when stealth ended and direct action began. Her training had taught her to channel that adrenaline into heightened awareness and faster reflexes instead of letting it control her actions. In the control room, Grexmore suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. He had survived 20 years of dangerous criminal activities by learning to trust his instincts, and right now those instincts were screaming warnings at him. "Something's wrong," he said to his guards. "Check all the security monitors again." But the monitors showed nothing unusual. The facility's corridors looked exactly the same as they had an hour ago. There were no signs of intruders, no indication that anything had changed. Grexmoor's communication officer tried to contact the patrol guards he had sent to check the lower levels. Patrol 7, report your status. Patrol 7, please. Respond. Still nothing. Grexmoor stood up quickly. Lock down the facility. Activate all security systems. Send armed teams to every level. But it was too late. Kelly's team was already in position around the control room, and Maria's jamming device was blocking all outgoing communications. The pirates were trapped in their own stronghold, with no way to call for help. Kelly took a deep breath and prepared to give the signal for her team to attack. She thought briefly about her daughter, who was waiting for her to come home safely. She thought about the innocent people these pirates had hurt during their criminal activities. She thought about her duty as a soldier to protect the weak and punish the guilty. Then she pushed all of those thoughts aside and focused completely on the mission. Go, she whispered. Kelly's team moved into action with deadly precision. They entered the control room from 3 different directions simultaneously, overwhelming the pirates before anyone could reach for weapons or alarm switches. The entire fight lasted less than 30 seconds. When it was over, Grexmoor and his command staff were on the floor with their hands secured behind their backs. None of them had been seriously injured, but all of them looked shocked and terrified. Grexmoor stared up at Kelly with wide, frightened eyes. You, he said in broken human language. You are the silent killers. Kelly looked down at the pirate commander who had terrorized peaceful settlements for over 20 years. She felt anger at his crimes, satisfaction at his capture, and relief that the mission was complete. But she didn't show any of these emotions on her face. We're soldiers, she said quietly, not killers. Steve Chun was already securing the facility's computer systems, while Alex Turner and Maria Rowe. The emergency alert reached Admiral Patricia Kane while she was reviewing supply reports in her quarters aboard the human battleship Defender. The message was marked with the highest priority codes, which meant that somewhere in the galaxy, people were dying and needed immediate help. Kane read the alert twice to make sure she understood the situation correctly. A massive pirate fleet had attacked the Council colony world of New Haven. The planet housed over 2 million civilians from a dozen different species. The defending Council fleet was outnumbered 3-1 and facing complete defeat. What made the situation even more desperate was the composition of the pirate fleet. Intelligence reports showed that this was not a random group of criminals. Someone had organized dozens of pirate gangs into a coordinated force with military-grade weapons and professional tactics. Kane stood up and walked to her communication station. All ships, this is Admiral Kane. Prepare for immediate departure to the New Haven system. We have civilians under attack. As her task force prepared to leave for New Haven, Kane thought about the political situation that had led to this moment. 3 weeks had passed since the Galactic Council's emergency meeting about human combat behavior. The discussion had ended without any real resolution, leaving human forces in an awkward position within the Council military structure. Some alien commanders had requested that human ships be removed from joint operations because their crews made other species uncomfortable. Others had argued that human effectiveness in combat made them too valuable to sideline regardless of cultural differences. The debate had continued for weeks, while pirates and other criminals grew bolder in their attacks on peaceful worlds. Now a major crisis was forcing the issue. Kane's task force consisted of 6 human ships with crews, totaling about 3,000 people. It was not a large force compared to some council fleets, but Kane knew that her people were well-trained and experienced in combat operations. Lieutenant Commander Rachel Stone stood at the tactical station on the Defender's Bridge. She was Kane's weapons officer and had served with the Admiral for over 5 years. Like most human military personnel, she had learned to maintain perfect emotional control during combat situations. "Admiral," Rachel reported, "we'll reach New Haven in 47 minutes. Long-range sensors show extensive fighting in orbit around the planet." Kane nodded and studied the tactical information flowing across her screens. The pirate fleet was larger than anything she had encountered before. Over 30 ships of various sizes and configurations, many of them armed with weapons that should not have been available to common criminals. "Who's coordinating the Council defense?" Kane asked. "Admiral Tisara of the Vorthen Collective," Rachel answered. "Her flagship is the Honorbound, a heavy cruiser with a crew of 800. Kane had worked with Tisara before and respected her as a competent military leader. The Vorthen commander understood tactics and knew how to inspire her crews to fight effectively. But Kane also knew that Tisara's people fought with emotion and instinct rather than calculated precision. "Open a channel to Admiral Tisara," Kane ordered. A few moments later, the main screen showed the bridge of the Honorbound. Tisara stood in the center of the image, her thick fur streaked with sweat and her eyes showing the strain of commanding a losing battle. "Admiral Kane," Tisara said, relief clear in her voice. "I have never been happier to see human ships. What's your status?" Kane asked. "We've lost 6 ships in the past 2 hours. The pirates have better coordination and heavier weapons than we expected. My fleet is falling back to protect the planet's orbital stations, but we won't be able to hold them much longer." Kane studied the tactical display showing the current battle. The Council ships were fighting bravely, but they were clearly outmatched. Each alien crew was following the combat traditions of their own species. Vorthen's roaring challenges, Salani singing war songs, Krillians releasing excitement chemicals. The pirates had learned to use these predictable behaviors against the Council forces. They could anticipate attacks based on the emotional signals that alien warriors broadcast during combat. "Admiral Tisara," Kane said, "I'm going to do something that may make your crews uncomfortable. My ships will engage the enemy using human combat doctrine." Tisara's expression showed confusion. "What does that mean?" "It means we're going to fight in complete silence," Kane explained. "No communication with the enemy, no emotional responses, no warning of our intentions. We'll coordinate our attacks using encrypted channels that the pirates can't intercept." "But how will my ships know what you're planning?" Kane made a decision that would change how the galaxy viewed human military methods forever. "I'm going to break with standard human combat protocol. I'll provide running commentary on our tactics, so you and your crews can understand what we're doing and why." Tisara's eyes widened in surprise. "You would reveal your tactical methods to help us understand?" "The galaxy needs to know that human silence doesn't come from coldness," Kane said. "It comes from caring too much about victory to let anything interfere with our effectiveness." Kane's task force dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the New Haven system. The human ships appeared without warning, just as they had during every other battle they had fought. But this time, Admiral Kane immediately opened communication channels to all Council forces. "Council Fleet, this is Admiral Kane. We are beginning our attack run now. Watch and learn." Kane's ships moved toward the pirate fleet with their characteristic deadly precision. But instead of maintaining complete silence, Kane provided a steady stream of commentary explaining human tactical thinking. "Human doctrine emphasizes patience and observation before engagement," Kane said as her ships positioned themselves at the edge of weapons range. "We study enemy formations and identify weaknesses before committing to attack." Rachel Stone worked at her tactical station with calm efficiency, analyzing the pirate fleet's composition and movement patterns. Her recommendations appeared on Kane's command display as cold, mathematical assessments of how to achieve maximum damage with minimum risk. Our weapons officer is calculating optimal target priorities, Kane continued. Humans don't choose targets based on emotion or perceived threats. We attack whatever will give us the greatest tactical advantage. The pirate fleet had noticed the arrival of human ships, but they were still focused on their battle with Tessara's forces. The pirates had been winning for hours and felt confident in their superior numbers and firepower. First strike will target the enemy's command and control capabilities, Kane announced. Humans prefer to blind and confuse enemies before destroying them. Kane's ships fired their first shots with surgical precision. Instead of attacking the largest or most dangerous pirate ships, they targeted communication arrays and sensor systems. Within seconds, the pirate fleet lost its ability to coordinate attacks effectively. On the honor-bound, Tessara watched the human attack with growing amazement. She had seen human ships fight before, but she had never understood the reasoning behind their tactics. Kane's commentary was revealing a level of tactical sophistication that no other species had achieved. The pirates expected us to attack their strongest ships first, Kane explained as her fleet repositioned for a second strike. Most species choose targets based on honor or emotional responses. Humans choose targets based on mathematical analysis of battlefield effectiveness. The pirate commander tried to adapt to the human attack by spreading his ships out and changing formation. But Kane's ships had already moved to their next positions, anticipating exactly how the enemy would respond. Human combat training includes extensive study of alien psychology, Kane said. We learn how different species think and react during battle. This allows us to predict enemy behavior with high accuracy. Rachel Stone's second barrage disabled the engines on 6 pirate ships and destroyed the weapon systems on 4 others. Each shot was placed with mathematical precision to achieve maximum tactical effect while using minimum ammunition. Our silence during previous battles was not meant to be intimidating, Kane continued. We maintained communication discipline because any unnecessary sound could reveal our intentions to enemies with sensitive hearing or advanced sensors. The pirate fleet was now in complete disarray. Their commanders couldn't coordinate attacks, their ships couldn't maneuver effectively, and their weapon systems were being systematically destroyed by enemies they couldn't predict or understand. Several pirate ships tried to surrender, but others attempted to flee toward the edge of the system. Kane's ships moved to intercept the fleeing vessels, while simultaneously accepting the surrender of those who gave up. Humans don't celebrate during combat because we understand that battle is a tragedy, even when necessary, Kane said as his ships completed their systematic destruction of the pirate fleet. We take no joy in violence, only satisfaction in protecting innocent lives. 23 pirate ships were captured intact. 7 others were completely destroyed when their crews chose to fight to the death rather than surrender. The entire battle lasted 37 minutes. When it was over, Kane's ships took positions around New Haven to help with rescue operations and cleanup efforts. But instead of maintaining their usual silence, Kane